Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tarot Talk, your best combination, broadcasting from the hills of beautiful Northern California, and we're also on the East Coast in Dover, Delaware, and I believe Georgetown, Delaware. So we are East Coast meets West Coast again tonight. Happy summer solstice, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. And you know, Tarot Tim is in the house with me. Hey, Tim.
Hello, everyone. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, I'm excited. So my special guest this evening is an author, astrologer, ritualist, and Wiccan elder, and so much more. Ivo Dominguez Jr. is in the Tarot House, everybody. Hey, Ivo.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to have you on. And Drinking Game Alert, my guests won't know it, but anytime anyone says this word, take a sip from your caffeinated or otherwise beverage, your Ace of Cups, until you get the motivation to put your entire tarot collection in order. So, although you know what I was thinking, Tim, I think it might be funnier if we try and predict how many times I'm going to drop off the call. Because I think it was like 2 or 3 times last week, and so it's like, oh, there I go. But that's what I get for trying to push out the shows during the
Mercury retrograde.
I know, right? But you know, Ivo, is it true that sometimes the retrograde can actually produce, I mean, it's technological issues, but does it also produce like deeper, more meaningful conversation on some level, or no?
It does. I mean, honestly, everything is useful if you use it well. Mercury retrograde is a great time for reviewing and retracing steps you've already taken, editing something you've already written, rethinking a particular part of your life. Actually, counseling sessions work better during Mercury retrogrades because people are more likely to let the truth out. So yeah. There's actually value in it. And actually, the day it goes retrograde and the day it goes direct, there's actually more Mercury energy, if you will, available. Think about a magic marker scooting across a sheet of that old brown drawing paper, how it soaks into the paper. And if you slow down, it gets wider. And if you come to a stop, there's this big, giant splotch of ink. That's the way you should think about the day that it goes retrograde, the day it goes direct. There's actually more available to work with.
Is this, I know that the Mercury's in Gemini right now. It's retrograding through that. Is it, you know, Mercury's the planet of communication, as is Gemini is a very communicative sign. So is this even, I guess, further compounded by the sign that Mercury's in right now when it's going through?
It is in the sense that each sign has its particular style and its own domain of which things it does or rules. So the things that Mercury is about definitely get thrown for a loop a little bit. Though, you know, if you go with the flow, you always do better. I had to travel during a Mercury retrograde, got to a hotel in Chicago, and I was waiting in line and realized there are not going to be any rooms, even though I booked this 1,000 years ago. The train had broken down, Mercury retrograde, and that was the designated Amtrak hotel for all the people that couldn't go anywhere and had to have some place to be. So when I got up to it, they said, there are no rooms left. And I said, look, if you can put away my bags and let me sleep on the sofa in the lobby until there's room, I'll be happy. If you have a broom closet, I'll sleep in there. And they finally looked at me and with piteous eyes and said, well, there is one room, but it's not clean. And I said, I don't care. I'll change the sheets. It was the bridal suite. And this was this lovely, sumptuous room because I was willing to change the sheets myself.
Right. Rolling with it, being
yeah.
Yeah, I think Tim's having an easier time with it than I am. Like I said, I was like typing earlier, like you're being such a Gemini right now, like I hate you. Like I just have such anxiety right now. But anyway, so Ivo, it's so great to have you on the show. Like I said before in pre-show, like I miss you, I miss Jim and Dar and the assembly and the whole learning environment. You all are so great. So I miss you all, and it's so great to have you. So
thank you, Steve.
Yeah, so you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. Give us the condensed version.
How about I start with what I did today and then work from there?
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, every day is really, really busy for me, but today actually was extra busy of a physical nature. Literally, I just had enough time to have a quick bite of dinner and get Skype working properly on my iPad that I'm using for the first time for this purpose. So, because I was unloading about 120 boxes plus maybe like another 24 loose containers filled with books and treasures, if you will, from Judy Harrow, who's a pagan author elder who passed away recently, and she left all of her library to the New Alexandrian Library Project, and today was the day it was being delivered. So I spent a good part of the afternoon schlepping boxes. One of the things that's taking a good chunk of my time right now, and it's worth it, is we are building a library. We're at the drywall is drying, and soon we'll be at the painting stage. It's a library that focuses only on esoteric, spiritual, metaphysical, and occult materials. And with any luck, it'll probably be opening later this year. And people go, do we really need that? And I say, yeah. There were boxes of things like mimeographed lessons and newsletters. Those are the sorts of things that need to be scanned and preserved before they fade to nothing. There's a lot of material that isn't readily available online or even in the printed book format. So libraries like this are part museum and part cultural repository. So that's a big project in my life, and that's one of the things that the Assembly's been investing. Well, I guess the last, the project was officially kicked off in 2000, and here we are, 2014, and we're building a library.
Right.
So that's a big piece.
Right. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. What you all are creating. Right.
And a lot of fun to fun life.
Right. Yeah. Well, just in all your other work, I guess, just touch briefly on.
Well, all right. Well, literally last Friday, I finished and sent off a manuscript to my editor at Wiser Books. It's a book on how to learn astrology if you're going to be using it for occult or esoteric, or who knows what the title will be. My working title was Practical Astrology for Witches and Magicians.
Woohoo! That sounds exciting.
Well, because most of the books on astrology are either written for other astrologers, and they're very jargon-heavy and math-heavy,
right,
or they're written for the masses as a kind of light entertainment.
Like pop astrology, that's what I call it, pop astrology.
Yeah, or motivational astrology, where it's telling you, this is the best way that you can be, kind of thing. So the book, it really focuses on, this is how you make use of whatever the conditions are and how to pick the best conditions for meditation, contemplation, ritual work, healing work, whatever. So it's practical, and it teaches enough astrology. The way I put it, everybody needs to know math to get by in life, but there are very few people called to be mathematicians.
Right.
Most people that are doing something that's metaphysical, it would really benefit them to have just enough astrology under their belt and understand how it works for those purposes. So I just finished that book. I've got 2 other books out that I guess we'll get around to mentioning. But honestly, a lot of my work is in doing workshops and in community building, helping to organize events, whether they be conferences like Between the Worlds Conference, which is coming up next March, or helping out with other conferences like Sacred Space or Pagan Pride Day in Delaware, or honestly, there's 11 covens at this point, and that keeps me quite busy just helping enter those.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then there's
y'all. For the ones who don't know, he's also the owner of Bell Book and Candle and my boss.
and I will actually reappear because the last couple of months, I've either been dealing with the library or I've been sitting at the computer writing. Mm-hmm. So that I've been only getting into the store 2 days a week, 1 day a week. So starting tomorrow, I'll be back to being present again. But you really can't do it all. You basically have to decide which thing can I do today and which thing somebody else can do.
Right. Yes.
This will be the longest block of time I've actually been around Ivo since I started working at the store.
I know. I mean, it's I don't know if any of you have ever been involved with or have people in your life been involved in a construction project. Yeah. And honestly, it's a little bit different when you look at getting permits and space set up for something that's not a home. Public spaces are a whole different creature.
Right. I was going to say, it's like that, only worse, I would imagine.
It
just
is.
all
It
the,
is.
the red tape and whatnot. But you're all making it happen, and
it is happening. And
thing.
that one of the things that the library hopes to do as well, and I think this will also interest you, is that there will, of course, be not just books or newsletters, but we've also collected artwork. We have, if folks are aware of who Dion Fortune is, who's perhaps one of the most important of the British occultists of the last, of the 19th century, early 20th century, she painted 4 paintings of the 4 archangels, and through one of her students, they got donated to the library.
Yeah.
We also have a couple of tarot artists who are Nybor, who has a tarot deck out, is donating some of the paintings that were the originals. And we have several other artists who are donating originals from the creation of their decks.
Very cool. Yeah.
Because it's part museum, part library.
I'm sorry, what?
Partly museum, part library. It kind of serves both purposes.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And who would have thought? In teeny tiny Delaware, you know? Yeah.
You know what? I actually think it's easier in a smaller place.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you would think it's the other way around, right? Because you would think more people equals more resources, yes?
Right.
Okay. Well, how many more distractions and competing options and venues are there?
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, that's what I found since moving to California even, where good news is this, just all the stuff that I do and I'm interested in and was involved in on the East Coast. I mean, they're very much into that, but it's also like the bad news, because at a point it gets a little, it lacks the community, I should say, that the East Coast, that Delaware in particular had. There was so much community there. Everybody was close. Everybody knows everybody. You know, and it's definitely not like that out here, even though everybody is very much into the metaphysical, the esoteric, and everything. It's definitely a different vibe because it's smaller. Yeah, Delaware is very special.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that. Actually, do you know where the biggest per capita concentration of pagans is in the United States?
Is it the East Coast?
Nope.
Oh, it's not. Is it? Yeah.
It's actually around Minnesota.
Oh, really? Huh. I wouldn't have thought that. Minnesota, yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you go to the Midwest, that northern Midwest chunk, and I'll say Minnesota's like the core of it, but the locals actually call it Paganistan. And they actually have, based on census data, a bigger pagan population per capita than anywhere else in the United States. And at their Pagan Pride Day, not only do they have like 2,000 people that show up for the event, but they have another 1,000 people that participate in a march that culminates at the event.
Wow, that's awesome.
But you'd never think.
I would never thought Minnesota.
Yeah, but I really think it has 2 things. One, people are spread a little bit thinner there, which means that when you find people that have a common interest, there's a real motivation to try to get to know them or work things out. And in a larger area, it's easy to, well, you know, that pissed me off. I'm just going to go play in somebody else's pond.
Right.
So I think there are human reasons why smaller areas, you know, if the Graces and the Muses all agree, if the spark is lit, then small places can grow great communities. The problem is, in a lot of places, there's no spark, so it never happens.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Well, Delaware's very special, and y'all have ignited something very special over there, so it's just great. And you do so much. It's amazing. So I have to ask you the same question that I ask every guest who comes on the show. In one word, what lies at your core as a reader? And for you, I feel like the question really encompasses all of your roles, you know, author, teacher, leader. So, in one word, Ivo Dominguez Jr., what lies at your core?
As a reader.
Well, a reader, or just at your core as the person who does what you do, like teaching, leading, all of it.
I'm going to have to say the word work.
Okay.
Because if anybody comes to me and asks me to help them either as a mentor or as a teacher, or honestly even in a lot of readings, ultimately the question comes down to it is, what's your work? What's your purpose? What are you supposed to be doing? Why are you here? What do you have to offer? And in a lot of ways, for me, most people's answers come to the surface if they are going about doing whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing. And for some people, that may be doing tie-dye T-shirts for the rest of their life. And for other people, that may be joining the Peace Corps. And for others, it may be sitting down and writing a book. But it ultimately is, what is it that actually makes you, claim your space here on Earth? And that's your work.
I like that. I think that's that's a great word. And it's an active word also. We've had many words, on the show. And that one's, very active. And I think that work really does pull from the Sun Tarot card, which I feel kind of inspired this question. And the Ace of Pentacles also, the core and the work. And I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you.
It's kind of like this is a silly image, but when you said that, it's kind of like I was thinking like I'm a sorting hat. Follow Harry Potter.
Oh, sorry, I missed the reference. I'm probably the person.
That's why I added the Harry Potter. It's kind of like my job is to look and figure out, okay, where are they supposed to go? What are they supposed to be doing?
I like that. Yeah, very good.
Well, it's very much like he's using a lot of the Emperor energy that we've talked about before, because he takes all the ideas and the ethereal and stuff, and you make it happen. It's practical. It's not an airy-fairy idea that, I'd like to do this. You actually write the book and teach the classes and bring the people together and make the library. And it's very proactive. Not you're not resting on your laurels and waiting for the universe to bring it to you.
No, I could use a weekend though.
Right. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, but he's thinking of Helena's tarot deck. You're the elder in her deck, the Hierophant, not the Emperor, but the Hierophant, which I think is very the elder is what she calls it. But yeah, it's very fitting. Yeah, very fitting for what you do. So something to think about, everybody. What lies at your core? So let's talk some tarot. But I do want to pull astrology into the conversation, at least briefly, because you are an astrologer. Do you feel like you're more an astrologer than you are a tarot reader?
Ooh, you know what? I honestly think it depends on what the person is looking for.
Segue into my next question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people will come and say, hey, they want a reading or they need some advice, or it's like, well, let's pause for a second. Different tools are better at different tasks.
That was my next question, is which ones you feel are better for tarot, which is better for astrology, and how do they work together? Maybe.
Here's what astrology can't do that tarot can. I'll do it that way first.
Okay.
When you look at somebody's astrology, it tells you nothing about the soul, the spirit, the that's driving that body, that's using that vehicle.
Okay.
So, like, if you took the chart for two individuals their charts are virtually identical. Let's say that they were, born side by side, same hospital, couple of minutes apart.
Okay.
All right, so they're really similar. But, of course, the spirits inhabiting those bodies are very different, or soul, if you prefer that word. Mm-hmm. All right, think of the chart as being the equivalent of a CD or a DVD that has beautiful music, etc. on it.
Okay.
If you stick that DVD or CD into a cheap portable boombox and play the music, it's going to sound one way. If you stick it into a amazing system that has the latest advanced speakers available, you're not even going to think it's the same music, and you're going to hear instruments that you didn't even notice were there, and little nuances that were just in this. The point is, the quality and the depth of the soul or spirit that plays back the information, the predispositions on the chart, vary dramatically. So the astrology can't tell you whether or not they're highly developed spirits or souls, or how well they're going to be able to use or not use what they've been given. Whereas tarot plugs more directly into the person, so that you can actually have a sense of who they are and how well they're doing with what they've been given.
That's interesting. I do, yeah.
They have strengths and weaknesses. Certainly astrology is better for really, really long-term forecasts. Okay, whereas I feel tarot has, this is how far the telescope focuses and no further. Whereas astrology, I can make an accurate prediction about something that may be happening 20 years from now for a person.
Right. Well, and that's one thing that I've noticed also, is that astrology, for me anyway, is the timing. Yeah. I use astrology for more than tarot. But do you feel like tarot is, because it's so visual and it's this pictorial representation of energy, do you think that that's why you can get a better read on the person and their little nuances in astrology?
That's part of it, but also it's the training. Readers are trained and taught and told to pay attention to the person that they're doing the reading for. Tune into them. Try to feel it and intuit, who and what they're all about, so you can give the best possible reading. Whereas astrology, and it is a science, or a sacred science to be more exact, sure, they teach astrologers good bedside manner, if you will. But for the most part, the learning intuition, learning to tune into your inner voice or your inner guidance stuff, not so much. Not so much. So that one focuses more on this is what's there, and in the chart, and the other focuses on what's here in the cards, what's here in my head and heart, and what am I picking up from the person, and how do the three blend. So tarot's much more organic in that sense, and it's focused on person.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Do you combine tarot and astrology together? I mean, I guess I'm thinking of the astrological correspondences to the tarot. Do you work with it in that way?
I do, and I also heavily use Kabbalistic references in both astrology and in tarot. But honestly, all three of them together are kind of like, it's going to sound bizarre, but chemistry, geology, and astronomy. It's kind of like they're all sciences, and they all overlap in certain ways. And some things can be borrowed from one to the other, but not everything.
Right. Okay.
But I think that, and I'll tell you when I will do both. And if it's not that any question is unimportant, but there's certainly some questions people come to you with that the choices that they're going to make are going to be making huge impact on perhaps their lives and several other people's lives, and you want to be doubly, triply sure that you've got it right.
Right.
All right. If it's that kind of momentous, oh my God moment, then I may put down the cards and say, you know what, if you don't mind, if you know your birth information, I just want to see what's going on in the stars right now, as a way of double checking that what I just said is as dire or as important as I thought it was. And sometimes there will be, or in the other direction, I've been giving astrology readings to people and say, would you mind if I pulled a card or two at this moment? Because this does not tell me, staring at the person immediately doesn't tell me certain things. Pulling a card or two does.
Right.
So I think that they serve different purposes. Now, mind you, I certainly believe that you can be an excellent tarot reader without any knowledge of Kabbalah or astrology.
Sure, right.
But
That's good, that would cover me.
Well, no, I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. And there are many ways to provide useful information. And we vary in our capacity to be psychic and intuitive, and as we know, when it comes to tools, we all develop our own style. For example, all right, let's think about musical talent. How many different ways are there to play a guitar? And some people went to Juilliard, and some people learned in their backyard with friends.
Right.
One of the things that training cannot do is create talent that's not there.
Right.
But if there is talent there, then every technique that you and everything that you add to your bag of tricks just makes it easier for you to do a better job. And also, as a spot check against your perspectives clouding the answer. Let me give you an example. Or lack of knowledge clouding answers. I have a friend who wanted me to look at some astrological stuff for him for investments, because he knew that I had been doing that for a guy that was a real estate agent. And I said, you know what, the real estate agent guy, I can look at the chart and tell him this is what's going to be easier or harder for you to sell, or these are the kind of things you have to watch out for. Because I know something about the psychology of buying and selling houses or property. I don't know anything about Wall Street. So the point is, I would not be able to accurately interpret what the chart said because I lack the knowledge base for it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's certain kind of questions that I mean, we can give general trends and you can give general answers, but the more you know about something specific, the better reader you are, whether it's cards or the stars. A young woman named Marissa that I knew many years ago was an excellent, or I should say, had a great talent for medical intuition. But she was lousy because she could tell you all sorts of stuff, and then you wouldn't have anything to tell your doctor. So I suggested to her that she go to local community college and take a couple of anatomy and physiology courses, which she did. And after that, she would be able to tell people, go tell your doctor that the part of your shoulder that's hurt is blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So she had language and terminology to describe what she was seeing, which meant that people could then go forth and see their practitioner or whoever they were seeing, and say, hey, could you check me out for the following?
Right. Yeah. That reminds me of both. Yeah, you need both pieces, really. Yeah. Well, that reminds me, I don't know if I ever told you, Tim, this story, but I had done this was a while ago, but this big cleanse, and I was like, I wonder if this is going to, have any impact on, like, my intuitive abilities or my reading, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder what's going to happen, like if it's going to be more sharp, I guess, or heightened. It was interesting because I found that to be true, but what I wasn't banking on was when, because I was lacking my language abilities almost, so I couldn't communicate what I was, like, sensing and feeling and everything. So, like, that part dropped off. So that kind of, this just reminded me of that. You need both pieces to work together. Yeah, quite well.
I just think it's wonderful in readings that you can use anything to enhance it.
Yeah.
Because I have Native American in my ancestry, I am very drawn to the shamanistic practices. And I think that definitely enhances my understanding. I do very well with nature decks. More so than, some of the out in the stars kind of decks.
Right.
Before I forget, this is the card we were speaking of.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, he's, like, right there. It's right next to him, at least on my screen. That's funny.
Yep.
Well, Ivo can't see us, but Ivo, I keep forgetting.
I can
Ivo
see it. Yeah, I can't see it that way, but I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's your card from the
Bleak,
Cool Tarot deck. Yeah.
Very good deck. If anyone's interested, we'll be happy to give you the information. Just contact us.
Well,
Kind of strange for me. Kind of strange for me because I know too many people in the deck. I can't read with it.
Oh yeah, I would imagine so. Well, the whole assembly's in the deck practically. Yeah.
Tons of people and friends from elsewhere. So it's a deck that I can meditate with, but I can't read with it because I'm distracted by all the familiar faces.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, we had Helena on the show, everybody, about, I think that was when we were still with Blog Talk, right, Tim? Like, it was in the fall. We had Helena on the show.
I missed that one.
That's right, you did. You slept in.
Oh.
You did. You missed the show. Well, never mind. Helena and I had a good time, apparently, yeah. So, that's why we're on Blog Talk. But that show is archived on thetarottalk.com. Art and the Tarot with Helena Dominic, the creator Fellowship of the Fool. And yeah, it was a great show. But yeah, that's funny that you put that up there because it matches exactly what he looks like on his Skype profile here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so funny. All right. Well, Eva, one of the things I wanted to discuss with you is difficult clients and challenging topics when he reads tarot. And I've been wanting to discuss this topic with you ever since the show began, ever since it aired, because I remember having, this discussion with you years ago, and it was so helpful, the advice and guidance that you had. So I just kind of wanted to bring it up again because I think it was so good. But I know that, as readers, we all encounter the difficult clients, whether they're pessimists and flat out hostile, or whether they're just really emotional and really struggling. And so I wanted to know if you have any advice for how we can really connect with them energetically and how we can cut through all the stuff to work with the reading and to work with them.
Okay. Without this being a 3-hour talk,
Right.
Right. How about this?
Yeah.
How about this? You should think of your client, the person that's coming for the reading, the same way that you would if you were a therapist, if you were a clergy person, if you were sitting on the other end of a crisis hotline of some kind. The first thing is to make sure that nothing that they are doing is setting off your own defenses or your own fears or your own concerns.
Right.
So one of the biggest things is to be really grounded and really centered, because if you feed, and here's the hard part, it's easy to get caught up in their feelings and their thoughts because you just made an effort to tune into them.
Right. Sure. Right. Yeah, it's hard to separate, like, what is my stuff and what is their stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what's valid and what's now a little feedback loop that is turning the inner voice into the feedback screech of a microphone and a speaker that are too close to each other.
Right.
So that part of it is to back off and ground. And for folks who don't know what grounding and centering means, Google. It's easy to find. And to learn a breathing technique or two that helps you to reel it in or become aware of the edges of your energy field, or if that's something that you work with, and gently pull it, tuck it back in a little bit. Wrap yourself in a screen of blue-white mesh, if that's something you can visualize, with the intention of let those things through that I need to perceive and keep out those that I do not. The other thing is that they may not be able to hear everything that you have to say, even if you've got a huge fire hose gusher of information coming through. So that if you recognize that they're tuning out, this is the part where you're going to end up having to make a little tick list in your head. I'm going to have to repeat that 4 or 5 times in the reading because they didn't hear it the first time, and they're not going to hear it until I say it the 5th time. So really, you deal with it as if you're taking care of somebody in a crisis situation, and that also means taking care of yourself. Do you know what rescue remedy is?
Yes.
Homeopathic remedy? All right. It's, and one of the old adages for rescue remedy is what you give to people that are in a traumatic shock condition. If you think you need to give rescue remedy to somebody, you probably should take it yourself.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Right.
It's the same idea.
Okay.
But the other thing is, your boundaries are important, You're also capable of deciding for yourself. I can't read for this person. Now, sometimes it's the things you listed, but others are. What if the person says things that are setting you off because they resemble an event in your own life?
Okay.
Okay. It may be best, unless you have mastered the art of controlling and centering and focusing yourself and getting really zen about it. Mm-hmm. It may be that that's somebody you're going to do a fairly short reading and say somebody else is going to have to finish this.
Right. Right.
And because there are people that, if you've recently lost a beloved person in your life to death and the person is coming in and that's one of the things that's ripping them up, you may not be the best person to be reading for them at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I just had that happen a couple of weeks ago. It actually wound up being a beautiful healing reading, but we got to a certain point, and I knew I'm not a medium, but people show up sometimes.
Sure.
And I can feel them, and he was right there. And she said something, and I don't know where it came from. It popped right out of my mouth. Don't be stupid. But apparently it sounded just like his voice because it took her right out of that spot, and she looked at me, and then we were able to move on. And apparently that's what he said to her when she would get upset and not be rational. He would say that to her and bring her out of it. It was her husband. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it up until that point, it was definitely a very raw, emotional, and hard reading.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes you just got to let things happen that you don't expect during the readings.
Oh, absolutely. I just think that it's good to do what you have to do, but take care of yourself.
Absolutely, and recognizing your own boundaries and limitations and everything.
I'm also a Reiki master, and I find if I call in Reiki at the beginning, because Reiki's healing anyway, it does help those emotional edges sometimes.
Sure. I think one of the stories that you're probably remembering is one of the people that is on my "We'll never do a reading for them again" list.
Okay.
It's a short list, but I'll give you the extremely short, no identifiers. So not that the person's likely to listen to this, but out of respect for privacy.
Of course.
So the person comes in for a reading and hasn't asked a question, is doing the sullen, well, you're the reader, you tell me thing. Mm-hmm. So literally 10 minutes into the reading, I look up and say, you have to leave your boyfriend before he actually really hurts you. Mm-hmm. And her eyes got big, and then she opened up that indeed she was in an abusive relationship. So I said, and I kept pulling cards, and she kept wanting to figure out a way to fix the relationship, and everything. There will be more violence. Things are going to get worse. They've not hit bottom. She comes back 6 months later. She's still with the same guy. The situation is the same.
Right.
She comes back 4 months later. Things have gotten to the outright throwing her around, throttling her physical violence stage of things. She comes back for a fourth time, and before I even lay out the cards, I tell her, this is going to be free because it'll be the last time I'm going to read for you, and I'm going to make you cry.
Yeah.
And I told her exactly, this is how many times you've been here. This is how much damage he's done to your life so far, and it had also become financial damage as well at that point. Sure. And at that point, it was like I told her, I can't read for you again. Nothing's going to change. If you keep coming to me, you have to do something with your situation, and I can't help you. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened after that, but I can say that you also have to ask yourself in different situations, are we being helpful if we sugarcoat, and are we being helpful if we just keep hand-holding while they continue doing the same thing?
Exactly. Right. And I think it's a fine line.
It's a fine line.
For me anyway. Yeah, because I mean, one of my tarot mentors was all about, don't coddle the client and be like honest and everything, which, I get it. I understand. But at the same time, a piece of me is like, but I think compassion counts for a lot, So yeah, it's a fine line. It's important.
It's possible to be truthful without being brutal.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantee of however carefully you present it, how they will receive it.
Right.
I'm really lucky I got this drawl because my voice and a smile usually tempers the honesty a little bit.
I hear you.
Do you have any advice for how, I know we briefly touched on how energetically we can filter things, and keep their stuff from sticking, to us, but do you have any advice for how we can really connect with someone who's especially closed? I mean, the fact they're here really says that they're somewhat open, even if they're not acting like it, because they're here, they showed up, and they're willing to start something. But do you have any advice to connect with them?
Sure. Easy breezy technique.
Okay.
Become aware of your heart chakra, your heart center. And if you don't know what a chakra is, don't worry about it. Think about that place in the center of your chest that you have all those deep, powerful feelings. Mm-hmm. Try to move your focus of awareness there.
Okay.
In other words, instead of seeing through your eyes, try to see through that center. And take a deep breath, and with each breath thereafter, feel that with every heartbeat, with every breath, that you're expanding your energy outwards until you feel the other person. And it's totally subjective until you feel the other person, and then don't go any further. Just stay right at the boundary and breathe and feel the rhythm of who they are.
I like that.
And you'll begin to tune into them. And if you want some geeky knowledge kind of stuff, the biggest concentration of neural tissue outside of the brain and the spinal column is actually in the gut, in the core of your body. Think of it.
In the core, people. Yeah, I like that. That's awesome.
And the single largest electromagnetic field generated by the human body is generated by the heart. And in fact, even if you have like a group of musicians that are improvising together, they've actually done this experiment. If you hook up heart leads to them, some of the pulses in their electromagnetic field from their hearts begin to synchronize.
Oh.
So that when we make a heart-to-heart connection, it actually is an energetic thing. So that's one of them. The other thing is that, if they're walking around and they're sitting in front of you, they probably have a higher self. So sometimes I will, see a star of brilliance, a ball of brilliance above the crown of my head, see the same above theirs, and instead of trying to connect with the tormented or troubled or fearful or confused personality of the person that's sitting in front of me, I try to make a connection to their higher self and say, what's the deal there?
Right. I like that.
Because that bypasses some of the turbulence of the moment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there's one other little thing, but you can't always do it because people vary in terms of what's right and what's comfortable. Even if it is just a fleeting touch with your fingers when you're shuffling cards, if you can have skin-to-skin contact for even a moment, and when that happens, you literally try to connect then.
Okay.
Because then you're hooked in all the way down to the etheric level of their subtle bodies, of their energy field.
Gotcha. Okay. Good. Well, that's great.
There's tons of stuff. You can, and the staring at their third eye instead of their physical eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But if you would share, that would be great.
Oh yeah. Well, there are a couple of ways of doing it, but the quick and dirty is that you say that the eyes are a portal into a person's soul. Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at just where their third eye should be on their brow, if you just stare there for a moment, you might see a color, you might see a shape, you might actually see an image. Whatever they're visualizing, whatever they're conceptualizing, there is being reflected in that energy spot right there.
Okay. Well, great. That's really, I think that's helpful. And I remember a lot of that was the advice that you had given me, and I think it's great. So I'm glad. Thank you for sharing. I think that's great. The other thing I wanted to discuss with you was not just difficult clients, but tough topics. When someone comes to you with something that's just so heavy, like it's just really heavy. It's not not even the typical bad relationship stuff, but it's really heavy. What do you have some advice for how we can handle those topics?
Sure. You have to be fit and limber ahead of time. Let me put that in context.
Okay.
If somebody is and I'll admit that currently I'm pretty couch potato-y because I just spent a couple of months writing a book. So I have to get back in shape again, but we tend not to be at our full capacity in terms of our strength and our flexibility and resilience energetically. And that reflects emotionally and physically as well. So if a person has a daily practice of meditation or chakra work or dancing, if it's dancing with intention, unless you are doing something on a regular basis, then you're not necessarily as flexible and as resilient as you need to be to handle the tough stuff.
Okay.
If I told you to go forth and run a marathon tomorrow, it probably wouldn't work so well.
Correct. Yeah.
Or told somebody to lift this heavy weight, not so much. But assuming that the person had time to build up and run slowly every day and work it up, or lift heavier and heavier weights, voila, you now have strength. And flexibility is necessary for resilience. The measure of what resilience is that when you're so flexible that when you're pulled out of shape, when the stress is released, you snap back to your original shape.
I like that.
So that a lot of it is prep work before the heavy duty stuff happens. And then if the heavy duty stuff happens, have you ever had to go to the bathroom during a reading?
Not that I recall. Mm-mm.
Okay. Pretend you do. Say, oops, I had too much coffee this morning. Do you mind? I'll be right back. And jump into the bathroom and turn on the water and stick your hands in the running water and flush the energy that you've just been zapped with.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Or if I know ahead of time, I'll say, or during the reading, you're always allowed to adjust stuff. During a reading, gone up and said, you know what, I'm going to go grab a few crystals and I'm going to light some incense and a candle here. I think we need a little extra stuff. So that there's no reason why you can't adjust things on the fly. Take a moment for yourself in the bathroom to breathe, run cold water over your hands and flush the energy. Prepare yourself ahead of time by simply learning to be a more resilient and more mindful person. And you can use any number of practices for that. And consistency is important. Daily practice is important. By the way, if you can only do 5 minutes a day of something, that's better than saying, I'm going to be so good, I'm going to do a full 30 minutes, 40 minutes every day, and then you never do it.
Right. No,
So it's better to do 10 minutes a day that's steady effort. And the other thing is, if you are in touch with your higher self and your core, whatever language you use for those things, then you won't lose your way when this topic gets really heavy. And if it is really heavy, then you may want to make sure that you are allowing yourself enough emotional recovery time or spiritual recovery time afterwards. Mm-hmm. The worst reading I ever did of that nature that hurt me was a very young woman who was given the diagnosis of terminal cancer, and she came for a reading on what can I do and what are of the following choices, which one is going to keep me alive until my daughter turns 18.
And that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, exactly. But when I say tough topics, and you're just hit with it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Because that's really horrible. Because the thing was, she was courageous. She knew she was going to die, and she did. but she wanted to figure out, of all the treatment options, of all the financial options, she wanted to figure out, what can I do to do right by my daughter so that she's at least counts as an adult and can, move on after I'm gone.
Right. Mm. Yes. And so then did you use the things that you were like you had to reset and just
I got
through it?
I actually, at that point, I asked them, so would you mind if I do this?
Yeah.
And she didn't mind, so I said, I got out some stuff. I set up some crystals around us. I did some other stuff because I said, I want to do this right. And I also wanted to make sure that that she knew I was taking it as seriously as possible.
Right. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I took the rest. I did not do any more readings that week.
I hear ya.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, and that's partly for me because I had a very complicated relationship for my mom, and I wasn't there when she died. So, and will that ever change? No, I wasn't there when she died, and there were reasons why she didn't want me there, and there were a lot of stuff going on. But the bottom line is, I know I'll always have a delicate spot when it comes to that. So the best thing to do is, just like me and sunlight don't get along, I know I can only spend so much time in the sunlight, even with the best sunscreen. In the presence of certain emotional energies and certain topics, there's only so long I should expose myself for the sake of myself and everybody else I'm going to be giving a reading to in the near future.
Right. And I thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, and that's important for everybody to really think on is, what are your boundaries and your limitations? And it's okay to set those. I think as readers, we're giving people to begin with, highly intuitive, giving people, and we want to help, and we want to give advice. So I think that's so important. And for me, I think I actually came to you with this reading that I had done because I wanted to know, what could I do more, or did I do it right, and things like that, because it was sort of a similar reading where this woman, her son was in the ICU. He was in this horrible accident. They wanted to know, what can, is he going to live? And then two, what can we do? What's the best option here? And it was just, at the time, terrifying because it had so much weight. And I got through it, and it was a good reading, but I sure appreciated your advice after, just to be prepared for the next time. But that's what I mean when I say tough topics, because it really is, it can get tough. Yeah.
Don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, if you have an opportunity to take any kind of helping profession stuff, whether it's training for taking active listening, or I volunteered for a hotline when I was in college, anything that will give you further tools for listening, for boundary setting, for reframing. In some regards, what readers do is, it's not the same, but it does overlap in the areas that, clergy,
absolutely,
counselors, bartenders, and hairdressers.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
That's right. Oh, I know. Yeah. I'm laughing, but I think I agree. Yeah.
So why not take
cashiers into that list too? Because people
come in and
tell me their kids, their problems. Yeah.
So any training that works for people that work with people is probably something you might want to consider as a reader.
I think that's great. Yeah, that's great advice. Right. And then knowing the self. Yeah, I think it all comes down Always. It all comes down to the self, always. And it sounds so easy, but it's so hard. Yeah.
Sometimes for the really important, serious readings, I find spirit funnels the right people to the right readers. The one lady had lost her parents recently, and I was able to understand a lot of the emotional stuff because I'm an orphan. And,
right.
Your experience definitely plays into it, but I've always said I would rather have, 3 really good readings that, where I feel like I'm helping and it matters, than have 100 readings that are just fluff.
Well, Tim, let me follow up on that, because what you said, has a special consideration. We attract readers in the best of all possible worlds. If you're doing your spiritual work, keeping focused, doing whatever practice it takes to keep you in prime form, then you create this big giant sign floating over in the ethers that says, if you're looking for the following, Tim is here or Rebecca is here. One of the measures about whether or not you're doing your job at taking care of yourself is that the people that are going to show up for readings will be your kind of reading.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to get some that slip through because the universe said, well, there's nobody else available and you're as close as it gets. That's going to happen. But
Sure. Yeah.
but the more loudly and clearly you're projecting on the inner planes, if you will, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. If you need what I have, my perspective, come to me, then you're likely to get readings that are easier and smoother, or at least rewarding by the time you're done with them.
Right.
If you have no idea of who you are or what your strengths and weaknesses are, then you have no filter sitting on the astral saying, no, you should go somewhere else, or yes, this is exactly where you should be.
I see. I like that. I agree. What's your opinion then on people who have very real issues but who end up with readers who are not at all legitimate? Like, where does the connection come in there? Or is that totally separate? Is that a totally different karma deal?
Let me try that again. If I am understanding the question correctly, what about people that end up going to readers that are less than legit?
Right, using this perspective that you were just speaking on, or is that totally a separate thing?
No, it's connected. It's connected because they had a billboard, they had an ad, they had a website. You see, the reader is the giant magnet that's trying to attract the people to them.
Right.
The consumer that's looking for a reader, unless there's a big overpowering strange attractor, astral magnet, spooky distance in action, you know what I mean, from the reader, then they will be drawn to whoever was easiest to find and could schedule the appointment quickest.
Okay, so it's that's a little different from what you were talking about.
How about this? And it's not fair, but I'm going to put it this way.
Okay.
The average mundane, and I know some people don't like the term, are not using their intuition to find a reader.
Well, that's very true. That's true. Yeah, that's right. I guess in my mind I wasn't taking that into consideration.
However, if you as a reader are putting out a big field to attract the people that are the right ones for you, you're doing something active to attract them to you, but
right.
If they don't have their antennas on, they're not going to hear it.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
Most people are asleep at the wheel when it comes to making these choices.
Yeah.
Not that there's nothing, I'm not saying that there's nothing there, because there's something there. Sometimes people,
yeah.
Yeah, they're just not turned on.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right.
I had a lady the other week. I was like the third reader she had.
Yep.
She tried for the phone people. That didn't work. Someone else said, oh, you should go here, to someone they saw at a party. And
right.
they were, they could light candles for her aura and all this stuff, and that scared her because it was expensive, and someone recommended me, and
well, it should scare her. I mean,
we were able to finally work through all the issues, and she, she said, thank you so much. At the end of it, you finally answered my question.
Because that was a real reading.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I get what you're saying, Eva. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense to me. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
If it's somebody that's already metaphysical or aware of spirit, then they're going to listen to their gut about who they get a reading from or not.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the bulk of the population.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, Eva, do you have any advice for readers out there, both novice, experienced, no matter what it is they do or have done? Like, do you have any advice for?
Yes. Fluency. Think about this. People only become fluent in Spanish, German, any foreign language by just talking and talking and talking. And it's okay if it sounds clumsy and raw and messed up and the vocabulary is not right. The biggest thing is, to become a better reader, you need to actually do readings.
You need to read. Right.
It's the only way you get fluent at giving a reading.
Right. And it is a language. It really is. Yeah, it really is. That's great. I love that. Yeah, I think people, I've had people tell me, oh, I picked up a tarot deck, but I wasn't any good at it, you know? And it's like, no, keep going. Like, keep going. The fact you even were interested in it and took the time to pick it up really says something.
Well, tell them, like, okay, so you decided that you can't play piano because you took no lessons and you made and you went plink 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 on a couple of keys.
Right. Yeah.
It takes
A lot of time. Yeah. A lot of practice. Fluency. I love that. Great. All right. Well, it's been a great hour. I think we're about ready to wrap it up here. Tim, how can the viewers get in touch with you?
You can get me on Facebook at Timothy's Tarot, or if you're in the Dover area, I do readings out of Bill Book and Candle. It's 678-4545.
All right. And Ivo, what's next for you? What else are you working on? Do you have any announcements? Anything you want the viewers to know?
Next March, Between the Worlds Conference, and look up the New Alexandrian Library.
Yes. Be sure to post that link on the show website. And Ivo, how can the viewers get in touch with you?
IvoDominguezJr.com.
All right. I think you also have a Facebook page, right?
Oh, yeah.
All your work and your blogs, and it's all up on there. Yeah. Okay, awesome.
It's a strange enough name that it doesn't take long searching for me.
Oh, yeah, you're real easy to find. We'll Google you. Yep. But we'll also follow all of Ivo's info up on the tarottalk.com show website. Be sure to like us on Facebook, The Tarot Talk, and visit the website for upcoming guests, archive shows, and guest bios, and much more. Our word of the night was challenging. Not sure how many times we said it, but we'll have to count. So it was good. Next week we have our very first tarot power couple. The DeForests are here to discuss tarot, and they are also here to promote their upcoming first annual Northwest Tarot Symposium in Portland, Oregon. So it's going to be a tarot power couple filled hour. I'm super excited. So who knows what all else we'll be discussing with them. So join us next Monday only on the Parrot Encounters Network, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So mote it be.